Whomever wishes to start.
Good afternoon. My name is Tom Wellman. I'm president of the Nevada State Education Association Retired Program, and I'm a resident of Assembly District, Senate District 1. And I have some comments from members who could not be here today because they're in the classroom working, and I wanted to share those with you. This is from Megan Evans. I've spoken with many teachers since the start of SLOs. In the beginning, people looked at them as a way to learn about their teaching through some classroom research to discover what was working and what wasn't. It became apparent they would be used punitively. From that point on, teachers wasted educational time to do an SLO based on what they know their students will improve on. It's an embarrassment to true teaching through learning and hypothesizing and improving. Using SLOs to punish teachers takes away the meaning of good teaching. They take time out of the real work of discovering what does and doesn't work for students. If they were scored based on the work and learning done by educators, that would be one thing. But much like how Nevada education is run, it's another empty threat that goes nowhere to improve student learning. This one is from Courtney Hubert. I'm a fourth grade teacher with 19 years of experience. I'm teaching the highest number of students I've ever had, 35. I do not believe 20% of my evaluation should be based on student growth data. I firmly believe that my students would show more growth if there were less of them. I cannot connect emotionally with all of them as I would like, and definitely don't give them as much individualized attention as I wish I could. We can't continue to have the highest class sizes in the nation and expect teachers to make students show considerable growth each year. Please address our huge class size issues before you blame teachers for students' lack of results. Thank you for your time.
And thank you. Whomever wishes to go next, they're in Las Vegas.
Good afternoon, Mr. Vice Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Steve Horner, a resident of Senate District 9 and Assembly District 35. I am an Army veteran, Vice President of the Nevada State Education Association Retired and Clark Retired Education Association. But above all of this, I'm a grandfather of students in the Clark County School District. In February 2018, my daughter passed away. Her youngest son became our child to raise, and his education is a major concern in our family. My grandson was enrolled in Tarkanian Middle School. His teachers, counselors, and administrators knew that he was new to an urban school and that he was in an emotional upheaval. They also knew that all the student data created during his transition was and still is tainted and not representative of either their ability to teach nor his ability to learn. His teachers are faced not with just my grandson, but sometimes up to 50 students in a period with various stories and troubles, yet still teach and produce students that learn in many different styles and speeds. My grandson's teachers have done an outstanding job. They are professional and knowledgeable and should be evaluated on those abilities, not 15% of student learning goals. Teachers deserve evaluations that reflect their ability to reach and engage students rather than meeting some artificially set goals and objectives. I urge the committee to please reject SB475. Learning is about how to learn, not what facts can be memorized and then tested. Please allow our students to become lifetime learners. Thank you for your attention.
And thank you. We'll stay in Las Vegas. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm Jerri North, a retired elementary teacher of 33 years, a guest teacher since 2010, and current president of the Clark Retired Education Association, called CREA. I am speaking in opposition to SB 475. A teacher has zero control over many of the influences in their students' lives, including the amount of sleep, nutritious food, and health and vision care they receive. Parental attitudes towards education in the home environment have a huge impact on a child's attitude, self-control, and willingness to do their work. Socioeconomic factors play a huge part in the attitudes and support of a student. In some families, getting an education is secondary, while the family focuses on economic survival. Children who do not feel safe can't concentrate on lessons. The news last night reported that 20% of the students in a Las Vegas school didn't feel safe. I was recently in a 5th grade where I did not feel safe, and I did not feel that I could keep those children safe. One child got punched in line in their drama class and had to visit the nurse. Several students refused to sit down for any of the lessons. A chair was thrown. While preparing to go home, another student told me she didn't feel safe, so I kept her by my side. I was only there half a day. I also saw 4 primary students around the building refusing to follow directions of the staff member who patiently stood by them, repeating directions to get the children to go to their rooms. None were successful. Children have legally been given the power to disregard directions, and the adults are rendered ineffective. It is extremely unfair to base a teacher's evaluation on 15% of student learning objectives and goals for that grade level, when so many other issues come into play, like language barriers, learning disabilities, identified or not, and class size. Many students start the year far below their grade level, and bringing them up to grade level should count in the teacher's favor. Please reconsider this percentage issue and give credit to the teachers for all the miracles they do manage with inadequate funding, large class size, and varying support from families. Thank you.
And thank you. And please, there in Las Vegas, whoever wishes to go next.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Flores and the committee. My name is Carmen Andrews, and I'm a high school Spanish teacher in the Clark County School District in my, 22nd, 23rd year. It's all a blur. I do agree with a lot of parts of this bill, and there are a lot of things that need to change, but I am speaking against SB475 today because any amount of the SLG in our evaluations is too much. You've heard a lot of testimony that I can certainly back up. My plate isn't just overflowing. My plate, I can't even pick it up anymore. There is no more time in the day, and every year we are given more things to do. When you pick a student learning goal, it's a very arbitrary choice. Nobody's going to pick anything that they can't prove because it will be used against you. So it really becomes a dog and pony show. When Assemblywoman Miller brought up about teachers in music and things being given SLGs that have nothing to do with their area, I have a friend that's an orchestra teacher. His SLG literally is the same as every teacher in that school. Students will achieve 70% proficiency on paragraph writing using the RACES strategy. If I had a student in his class in music, I would much rather they have their time spent learning music, which actually helps their math, if we know our research, as opposed to being taught English in a music class by a teacher who is not licensed to teach English. Since the change to the NEPF, I have actually never been rated as a highly effective teacher, only as effective. This year, I know you can't really see this, but there's nothing to see. This blank box right here says TBD. This is the criteria that they were using to evaluate our SLGs. I was rated 3 as effective based on no criteria. So it's completely arbitrary as to what you get rated. I think you could probably ask your colleague and my former student, Assemblyman Flores, if that blend rating is truly representative of my abilities as a teacher. The SLG is just one other thing on my plate, like I said, that I just can't even pick up. It takes away from what I want to be doing, which is teaching my students. This is why I'm speaking against this today, because it is just a dog and pony show. Get rid of the SLG completely, and please just let me teach. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I don't think you should have opened that Pandora's box. For those that like me as a legislator, you can credit her for it. And for those of you who don't, she tried to keep me out of it, and I'm still here. But I do appreciate everything you did for me while in high school. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Harry Bell, I live in Legislative District 3 and in Senate District 3. I'm a retired high school teacher, and I'm currently on the board of the Nevada State Education Association. I would like to give some highlights, as Tom did, of some of the emails Nevada teachers have written to you in opposition to Senate Bill 475. Victoria Neistat says that incentivizing teachers to produce high test scores by making 40% of their job evaluation come from those test scores is simply not fair, and that a recent survey showed 90% of Nevada teachers agree with her. She would like to see student test scores comprise 0 to 10% of a teacher's evaluation. Nancy Cole, a teacher in Carson City at Empire Elementary School, writes, "Please listen to teachers, as we are the ones working with students." She says teachers work hard to give students the best education they can and asks that you believe in teachers like they believe in their students. She says student test scores should comprise 10% or less of teachers' evaluations. Your main focus as legislators, she said, should be to support education by supporting Nevada families, to make sure families receive a wage that allows them to provide for housing, food, utilities, clothing, and other essential needs. She would also like to see you promote skill training for jobs for those parents who cannot gain a competitive job to promote books and to promote books in the home. Cole says students who come to kindergarten ready to learn remain competitive when the home supports education. If we keep our families in poverty, she said, this situation will not change. Cole also urges that you spend the money to get classroom ratios down to 20 students to 1 teacher. Thank you.
And thank you. Is there anybody else in Las Vegas? Perfect. Before we come back to Carson City, is there anybody in Las Vegas that was wishing to speak in the neutral position? Can you raise your hand or stand up just so that I know? Perfect. I wanted to make sure we gave everybody an opportunity to speak. With that, we'll stick with the opposition and we'll come back to Carson City.
Good afternoon, Natha Anderson from Washoe Education Association. It's my honor and pleasure actually to be the president of the WEA. I'm usually an English teacher, however, in my real life. And so I wanted to actually talk from that point of view instead. Before I am speaking in opposition to this bill, I think the majority of the bill I agree with. There's exactly 2 parts that I kind of have a problem with, and that's 4C and 4.5C. I'd like that to be consistent for 15%. I understand where my colleagues from Clark County are coming from with saying a different number, but I come from an environment where we had strong PLCs. I was blessed with peers where we were able to sit down and truly look at lesson plans together and take a pre-test and go over why exactly this student did so much better because of how Mr. Poole taught it as opposed to how I did. And so those SLOs and SLGs were truly being used how they should have been, as a way to help me become a stronger teacher and a way to help my students. The way that it is currently being used, it's not helping us. And one reason why, this is our actual evaluation besides the SLOs and SLGs. This 13-page document are the items that we are actually evaluated on. We are evaluated on planning and preparation, as we should be. That's lesson planning. That's making sure that our students have that knowledge necessary. We are evaluated on classroom environment, again, as we should be. That is creating an opening, welcoming environment, even though we might have 38 students in the class and maybe we're not moving around as much, but managing those classroom behaviors and classroom procedures so our students are acting the way they should. We are evaluated on instruction. Are we able to differentiate our questions? Are we able to figure out this is the right time of year for this novel, as an English teacher, to be taught? Or maybe I need to do this differently. And then finally, we're evaluated on our professional responsibilities. But quite frankly, that professional responsibilities is not a high enough percentage in my opinion. And again, this is my opinion. If we were able to get a consistent percentage of 15% from here on out, and have that 5% go into professional responsibilities, which includes developing partnerships with families, which for, again, high school English teacher, that was the most important thing for my seniors. Because when I made a point to get to know my seniors' parents in August, which was difficult, but still would do. In February, when senioritis, and for those of you that have seniors, you know what that is, and the difficulty in getting them to that graduation. In February, when he finally started really seeing, hey, he's missed 3 days in a row, he needs to show up. Those relationships matter. And yet, right now, they are not a high enough percentage. That's where I believe that 5% should go. I believe also participating in the professional community itself. Again, those relationships with colleagues, creating that culture where we are able to speak with each other and being a little bit more aware of the language choices that we use. That comes from professional responsibilities. And so although I really do appreciate how much Senator Harris has had to meet with me lately, I actually was in her office today, and I think that they said, you've been here more than anybody else. And I'm like, wait, you're the vice chair of judiciary, but okay, great. I appreciate how much work she has put into this and how many emails she has had to receive and understands where I'm coming from as an educator. And I believe that I am speaking to the best of my ability for the members that I represent today, that many of them feel the same way, that our SLOs and SLGs, they serve a purpose, but they should not be where they are right now. And having that consistency of 15% would allow for the other elements to be just as important. I ask for your support of the majority of this bill, but also to have it amended to be a 15% for consistency's sake and have that additional 5% be put into professional responsibilities. I also understand that there were some questions earlier that had to do with what does it mean when somebody is not receiving a strong evaluation. As president of my association, I can go into that if you'd like. So although I know this is public testimony at this time, if there are questions that might have been brought up earlier, I'm more than happy to answer any.
Not at this time. I think we'll finish off with everybody wishing to speak in opposition, and then we can come back. Please.
Good afternoon. My name's Dawn Miller. I am been a music teacher in Washoe County for 24 years. I also was a member of, and still am, a member of the school that wrote the very first SLOs in Washoe County, which the percentage was 15%. My experience with the student learning objective over those years has been a very positive one. As a music teacher, I'm the only one in my school that teaches that subject. But it gave me an opportunity to sit with fellow music teachers from other schools and discuss our craft and find out what is our pivotal standard and where do we move. As the percentage has raised, those conversations have ended. When I was also under a lower of 15% or below, I had the opportunity to have that conversation with my administrator. She would come into my room. She could actually see and read and understand where I was moving a student or my classroom. As it became 40% like this year, and I will put this on the record, which I have submitted this through the Senate Education, my full evaluation, if you'd like to see it, and the percentage. My students did not make enough growth. And so my SLO has been deemed failure. I sat down for a weekend, broke down their scores. My students made amazing growth. It wasn't enough growth to show it on the SLO process. At 15%, my administrator and I would have talked about what happened, where did the kids go, how did we move. At 40%, the text messages were, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do, it's deemed failure. I would like the opportunity to have that SLG or SLO come back to a conversation where I'm having conversations with my colleagues and my administrator, and we are looking at what's best for students. Thank you.
And I just got asked that you be reminded by our majority leader, Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson, that you are the best music teacher ever. I'm serious. Thank you. I got a direct order that I must put that on the record. And whoever wishes to go next, please.
Kathleen Waddy, retired Washoe County School District educator, and I would like to read some letters that we have received from current teachers. Dear Assembly Member, as a special educator of severely impaired students, we're expected to write SLOs based on grade level standards instead of showing growth at their level with their goals through their IEPs, which are more important than standards. For example, my student may be in the 12th grade, but is working on writing the first letter of their name, giving eye contact, and following a simple direction. It does not seem fair to hold 20% of our evaluation on standards that there's no way our students will ever achieve. You can only bend a standard so far before it becomes not the standard at all. And that's from Carolyn Perona. I teach in a contained special ed classroom, teaching students with exceptionalities. I work very hard to ensure that all my students gain skills and abilities while also keeping one eye on the evaluation rubric to ensure that I am improving myself professionally and documenting my efforts to demonstrate my efforts to my principal. Should 20% of my efforts go into demonstrating my students master the one or few standards that make up the SLO lesson? Ideally, I am following the same pattern of data collection analysis, lesson design, lesson implementation, assessment, re-implement, then formal data collection with all of the lessons I implement. Is it fair that 20% of my evaluation be on the student performance of this one lesson? Does this not motivate me to put undue emphasis on this one lesson, spend more time than warranted, take time away from other standards and learning goals? Is that what is best for students? This is from Christine Silva. Our classrooms are made up of uniquely different students with vastly different abilities and needs. I have 2 students with IQs under 70. Others have students with severe behavioral issues, and we have students with chronic absences. How can this be held against me? And this is from Susan Ellison. Thank you.
And thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair. Alexander Marks with the Nevada State Education Association. If you'll indulge me, I'm going to be the carrot top of government relations today as I hold up a stack of emails that were sent to you guys and the other side related to reducing SLO SLGs to 0%. If you can't feel the frustration in this document, you can carry it around in your briefcase all afternoon. This is a serious issue, though. So I would like to read one more letter, I think, just to wrap up the letters that were sent to you. I work at a Title I school with a student population that is predominantly low-income families that struggle with many challenges at home. Drug issues, crime, gang violence, abuse, parent incarcerations, and poor living conditions are just a few of the issues many of my students face on a daily basis. How are my students supposed to focus on standardized tests when their brains are constantly in fight or flight mode, trying to think of a way to help their families, worried about their families, or even trying to think of a way to escape for their own lives? On top of this, many of my students are English language learners. In addition to their poor home lives and lack of parental support, these students struggle reading, writing, understanding, and speaking the language that all of our standardized tests are given in English. Their scores count towards my evaluation. Now the state of Nevada is dictating my evaluation and my effectiveness as a teacher based on the very students who aren't concerned about the tests they just took, but instead are worried about how they're going to feed themselves and their siblings for dinner because their parents are not around. This is unjust and unfair to teachers everywhere. While I support the use of data from standardized tests to measure growth and improve my practice as an educator to help them, I do not support almost half or even 20% of my evaluation being determined by a single goal based on my students' achievement. My evaluation should be based on my work, my practices, my pedagogy, and my efforts, not that of my students who are fighting just to survive the tough world they've been brought into through no fault of their own. I support evaluations based on instructional practice, leadership, and professional responsibilities. Please lower the SLO percentage component of the NEPF. Make evaluations for teachers in this state fair. Please don't let our students suffer. Lower the SLO, SLG percentage component and help teachers, help our students, and help our state. So I hope through reading all these letters and hearing them today, you kind of got a real world sense of what this bill looks like in an actual classroom, and that was kind of our intent with that. I don't envy your inboxes, but I can't apologize for our awesome members who wrote some really poignant and thoughtful things to you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Marks. If we could have you read each one of those emails into the record, what about maybe 4 or 5 hours? I think we can get it done. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Mr. Chairman, Chris Dailey, Nevada State Education Association, the voice of Nevada educators for over 100 years. I guess I get to bat cleanup. Just to point a couple of things out to the committee, we did submit a small policy memo on this. I hope that you read it. It outlined many of the concerns about the use of student data and teacher evaluations that we've heard during this committee meeting today. And then if I don't have it in the file, I think maybe a previous version may be, NSCA actually reached out to our members both to solicit input through the emails, some of which you've heard read today. We also did a survey which included over 3,700 active classroom teachers. This is where the data that we got around 90% not feeling that the current evaluation system is a fair or valid system, where over 2/3 of those responding thought that the appropriate use of student data and teacher evaluations was actually 0 or 10% or some number there in between. But what I want to do to close this off is read a new updated memo that we just today submitted to the committee, or I guess we are submitting it now to the committee, and that's that NSCA commends the State Board of Education for listening to teacher concerns on the use of student data in teacher evaluations and supports the proffered compromise of 15% starting the upcoming school year. NSCA continues to advocate for teacher evaluations based on instructional practice, leadership, and professional responsibilities. While we believe student data should not be included in teacher evaluations, NSCA has been open to compromise during this legislative session on what percentage to set for the use of SLO SLGs. NSCA supported this committee's bill, SB475, to set the percentage at 10%. We were then open to conversations with Chair Thompson and Senator Harris about going up to 15%. However, given that 2/3 of teachers in the state responding to our survey indicated the most appropriate use of student data was between 0 and 10%, we have not been comfortable supporting 20%. Thus, we are at the opposed table here. The Teachers and Leaders Council makes recommendations to the Board of Education related to the Nevada Educator Performance Framework. This morning, the Board of Education overturned the TLC recommendation of 20% for the use of student data, instead proffering a 15% compromise. NSCA appreciates board members for hearing teachers' concerns, and we support this recommendation. Thank you.
And thank you.